It's a bad day to be in Hammerhall, the premier city and fortress of Sigmar's might in the mortal realms. So what does a bad day in this bustling city look like? Well, it has to do with an assault on both sides of Hammerhall at once. If you're new to Age of Sigmar lore, Hammerhall, like many cities of Order, is built around a massive and stable realm gate that connects Giran, the realm of life, to Akshi, the realm of fire. Typified by things like verdant forests meeting lands of ashy rock and magma and stuff. The two sides of this, what's called the twin-tailed city, support one another in a very mutually beneficial way. Food and water comes in from Giran, it's exchanged for minerals and industrial labor from Akshi. Rare is the day when the forces of chaos can truly coordinate with one another enough to launch a large-scale assault, just in general, but then to synchronize them at once between the two realms. That's a lot to manage. But there was a day where something kind of different happened. For the first time, the arcane wards surrounding the city itself flickered and then died. The secrets of why or how such a thing could have happened is a tightly kept secret. It's known only to the highest echelons of the Sigmarite Order and perhaps the Church of Azir. Among the citizens of the city, this event became known as the unshielding, when the immense supernatural protection that was all over Hammerhall was suddenly lifted as if someone had lost their shield arm. Now, it didn't take long for the forces of chaos to hear about this, right? To sense that something was wrong. Maybe sorcerers kind of detected it from far off, or local tribes just saw something happen. But to get an offensive of this kind of scale, right, it takes time to mobilize. And while the hammer of Archaon is kind of amassing and about to descend upon the city, opportunity exists for small warbands to respond with, I will say, greater alacrity or swiftness. The message for all of them is clear. Break into Hammerhall's walls. Secure a foothold of some kind for the rest of your forces, whoever's going to be there, right? Establish a beachhead and act as the spearhead of your respective army. This event saw allies and enemies alike lash out at one another at this moment of true weakness for the twin-tailed city. And while the devastation and the burning and the pillaging was kind of rampant among both sides of the city, of particular notice were three locations that existed in Hammerhall Aksha and Hammerhall Gyra. Specifically, high-value targets that seemed easy to secure. The first one is the waterworks. Existing deep underground of both cities are complex networks of pipes, sewers, and waterways that keep life in this megalopolis that is Hammerhall possible. To capture the waterworks is to put the defenders on a timeline. Can you remove us before you run out of water? And that makes it a prime target. We actually saw waterworks being used as a weapon. At the end of the Dawnbringer's book, the Flesh Eater courts were doing it at one point, trying to poison a whole city. Then there were the arcane libraries. Secured behind large doors, these are repositories of important knowledge, a lot of it's arcane knowledge, and it seems highly defensible once you get in there, and of course, it's easy to see how it would be valuable. Even if not to the invader, then to the people of Hammerhall in general. They don't want to lose this resource. It makes quite a hostage situation. And lastly is the market district. If you wanted to plunder the city and get out before larger armies arrive, this is the place to do it. From Kharadron Overlord fleets bringing in trade of exotic goods to artifacts of power, weapons, and more, all of it exchanges hands in the market districts of such massive cities. So what happened on this historically bad day? Invading forces of ogres, gloomspite gits, and even illusionary apparitions appearing as Stormcast Eternals themselves attacked and lashed out at the great city in 3 grand pushes. The reports of how these forces got so deep into the interior of Hammerhall, Akshi, and Gyra is of course a great scandal, but the generally accepted report goes as follows. During the first wave of attacks in both Hammerhall, Akshi, and Gyra, the marketplaces were assaulted, and in both places, the defenders were able to hold back the attackers. Specifically in Giran, there was an interesting one a rogue group of Sylvaneth tried to use the pandemonium to reclaim gems and resources brought in from Gioran that they claim were stolen. Drosta themselves came down to keep the children of Alariel at bay. The reason these locations, the market districts, never seemed to fall seems to be a coincidence. Stormcast Eternal reinforcements were being dispatched from one side of the city to another, and so were present immediately and responded like the heroes they are. That is to say, the marketplaces were secure with a lot of Stormcast Eternal victories. Now, the reports get less positive as we learn about the waterworks and the libraries. Less positive from the perspective of Hammerhall, of course. So the waterworks. While the initial assault on Akshi Waterworks was repelled, it fell really soon after. Ogre Maw tribes and shadowy figures resembling Stormcast Eternals made savage attacks on the defenders. There was terrible damage wrought on the city's infrastructure, with water being poisoned by an unknown source, feeding into the mouths of Hammerhall citizens. Now that's on the Akshi side, their waterworks fell, but over in Gyra, luckily, the waterworks defenders held. And that's very important because water from Gioran is somewhat imbued with the magic of life. Fun fact, it actually acts as both a health potion and the currency in the game Soulbound by Cubicle 7. That's the Age of Sigmar role-playing game. My point is that water from Gioran is very, very valuable. And it seems that if the water was redirected to flush out Hammerhall, essentially the Akshi side, the poisons can be purged. It'll take months of work by Duarden engineers, but the damage to the Akshi Waterworks is quite manageable. But lastly are the arcane libraries, and this is another area where Akshi felt the burn of defeat. For 2 assaults, the defenders of the arcane libraries of Aksha held, but treachery would spell the doom within the 3rd attack. At first, it looked like reinforcements come to support the defenders, like we're finally reclaiming the city. They looked like Stormcast Eternals, they moved like Stormcast Eternals. Only when these new invitees were amidst the defenders was the deception revealed. These new attackers took the library in Akshi at the final hour, and did so without making a sound. The perfect assault and cover maintained. Over the course of several hours, the plundering and theft continued until a change in the wind notified the whole of Hammerhall that the wards were protecting the city were starting to fire back up again. For the invaders, it was time to leave. Take everything you can and run. Hammerhall had flinched in its moment of weakness. The unshielding revealed weaknesses the God King hadn't thought to address, and reminded everyone of just how deadly the Realm of Fire is. Gioran was attacked and stood firm. Akshi was back-footed, its arcane repositories plundered and its water poisoned. It'll take months to repair the damage that the city has sustained, and even then, there's no idea of what mystical tomes of knowledge were stolen. Reports did not specify anything. But for now, Hammerhall stands. Hey Wargamers, the lore that you just listened to was actually a bit of fan lore that was created off of the back of the Youngbloods Warhammer Spearhead event that I hosted here at Adepticon 2025. In this event, 6 young champions between the ages of 8 to 14 basically had a 3-round event set in Hammerhall, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that event now. As I said, it's a 3-round event, and I essentially had all of the boards flipped to the Gyran side, I believe, first round. Then second round, we flipped everything to the Akshi side, and in the third round, the players were allowed to roll off and choose as you normally do. Each table had custom-built terrain that was completely paid for by the awesome folks who watch this channel. A lot of folks donated to the GoFundMe that I raised, and it just took a lot of time and energy to get 6 tables ready. But yeah, I'm very excited for what came out. So we had the waterworks, of course, symbolizing all of the potential for destructive civil damage that exists in Hammerhall. The arcane libraries, which was a great source of amusement for putting those together, actually functioned really well as Spearhead terrain. And then, of course, there was the marketplace, which was a blast. Essentially, I just created a scoring sheet that kept track of the wins and losses and what realm they were playing in, and then just went down the list and wrote the story based off the results. The unshielding was more of a lore plot device to explain why these small warbands are rushing in real fast. I'd love to do it again. I plan to do this annually, and probably next year at Adepticon, running it for adults as well. As promised, I put together a scoring sheet as well as the full player pack. I have both of them linked down below. It goes to my Google Drive. The scoring sheet will work. There's no narrative aspect to it. It is simply the perfect scoring sheet for any Spearhead game. So I highly recommend you check that out. It accounts for extra VP that you get from twist cards and things like that. And it's so easy that I did not have to explain how it works to a bunch of 8 to 14-year-olds. They managed it at the end of the round. You just count up and check off what you achieved. And then I also included that with the player pack in case you're curious as to what the kids saw the day of. I want to thank everybody who pitched in, and a massive thank you to Jay's CD and Hobby, which is here in the Des Moines area. And also one new store in Ankeny. They're an online business. It's just a local store online that has every nerd thing that you could ever possibly imagine. Records, comics, card games, miniature games, everything. They buy and sell used stuff for nostalgia's sake. So if you're looking for anything, pretty much go to Jay's CD and Hobby. And also a final thank you to all the fine folks over at Adepticon. I continue to love doing Age of Sigmar stuff for Adepticon because the dudes in charge of it work really hard to make sure that we feel included. Like, we were near the I believe it's the Age of Sigmar doubles event that was going on, but we weren't like all squished together where it felt very like congested. It was perfect. The kids felt like they were part of the event without kind of being crushed by it. It was a fantastic year, and if you live in the Milwaukee area and you know somebody who has a kid that's going to be 8, or I mean, we can go younger or whatever, just talk to us. You can send me an email about age and that kind of stuff. As long as they're comfortable with the game, we're good there. But let your friends know, because I'd love to fill this event up. I have room for 12. This year there was some weather things that kept 2 of them from joining us, but yeah, I would love to see this event full. I hope you enjoyed the story and you get some use out of the resources below. Thank you so much for watching, and happy wargaming.